ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपां साग्रजातां सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। So we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, and from today we are beginning with the chapter number 6, that is creation of the universal form by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, Prabhuji will join soon within 2-3 minutes. Yes, Harshit Prabhu, can you read these translation only?
Sure. Translation.
Yeah, wait a minute. Prabhuji is joining.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, extremely sorry. So we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form. Sunday I have to reach somewhere actually, some 10-12 kilometers. So it has got delayed today. Very, very sorry for the delay. So this is the new chapter now, Creation of the Universal Form. So we know that the second and third canto primarily talks about Sarga and Visarga. What is Sarga? Sarga is beginning of Brahma's life, is Sarga. What is Visarga? Visarga is beginning of Brahma's day. Okay. Now this particular discussion is a very special discussion because here Brahmaji is yet to be born. So this is also beginning of Brahma's day, but this is beginning of Brahma's life's first day. Okay. So this is the difference between Sarga and Visarga. So now we come to chapter 6, creation of the universal form. This chapter has 40 verses and it is divided into 4 sections. Section 1 is text 1 to 10, development of gigantic universal form. So just like any development takes place, similarly the virāṭ-puruṣa, the universal form, also takes place. And we see the development of gigantic universal form. Text 11 to 26, manifestation of different demigods from the universal form. Right. So this is 11 to 26. 27 to 33, this is section 3, development of planets, living entities, and Varuṇas. So this is section 27 to 33. In the final section, 34 to 40, higher perfection can be attained simply by hearing Lord's glories. So again, there will be glorification of the Supreme Lord, which is the central theme of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, attaining higher perfection through Lord's glories. So this is how this chapter 6 flows in the 4 sections. So we come to text 1 now. Ṛṣi iti tāsam svashaktīnām satīnām asamitya prasuptalokatantrānām nishamya gatimīśvarah. Translation.
The Ṛṣi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies such as the Mahat-tattva. Purport. There is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. All the potencies are in the dormant state. But unless they are combined by the will of the Lord, nothing can progress. The suspended progressive work of creation can only be revived by the direction of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So here we are beginning with the development of the universal form. Although Mahat-tattva was there, the different potencies were present, but still there was non-combination of the potencies of the Supreme Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, there is nothing wanting in the creation of the Lord. The potencies are there, they are dormant. Just like in the laboratory, there may be hydrogen and oxygen. But unless a living entity, the scientist comes there, mixes the hydrogen, mixes the oxygen under proper PVT conditions, then only there will be water. Simply, the potencies will not give the creation. You need creator, right? Who is a living personality, or in this case, the Supreme Lord. The creator has to be there for the potencies to act and combine. Text 2. Kalasnyantarādevim bibrasya chaptimurukramah visham tani tattvanam ganam yugapada vishat. Translation.
Supreme powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. But the ingredients of the matter are counted as 23. The total material energy falls above sound, touch, form, taste, smell, earth, water, fire, air, sky, eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, hand, leg, evacuating organs, genitals, speech, and mind. All are combined together by the influence of time and are again dissolved in the course of time. Time, therefore, is the energy of the Lord and acts in her own way by the direction of the Lord. This energy is called Kali and is represented by the dark, destructive goddess, generally worshipped by the persons influenced by the mode of darkness or ignorance in the material existence. In the Vedic hymn, this process is described as Mula Prakritir, Avikritir, Mahadadyaha Prakriti Vikrityaha Sapta Shodashakas tu Vikaro Na Prakritir Na Vikruti Purushaha. The energy which acts as material in nature is a combination of 23 ingredients, is not the final source of creation. The Lord enters into the elements and applies his energy called Kali. In all other Vedic scriptures, the same principles is accepted. In Brahma Samhita 5.35, it is stated, एकोऽप्यसौ जगदण्डकोटिं यच्छक्तिरस्ति जगदण्डचयात् यदन्तः अंडान्तरस्थपरमाणुचयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. I worship the primal Lord Govinda, who is the original personality of Godhead. By his partial plenary expansions, Mahavishnu, he enters into material nature and then into each and every universe as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and then Kshirodakashayi Vishnu into all the elements, including every atom of matter. Such manifestations of cosmic creations are innumerable, both in the universes and in the individual atoms. Similarly, this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.42, Athava bahunetaiva kim jnatena tava Arjuna Vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam ekamshena stito jagat. O Arjun, there is no necessity of your knowing about my innumerable energies which act in various ways. I enter into the material creation by my partial plenary expansions, Paramatma or the Supersoul, in all the universes and in all the elements thereof. And thus the work of creation goes on. The wonderful activities of material nature are due to Lord Krishna, and thus he is the final cause or the ultimate cause of all causes.
The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements. Now, which are these 23 elements? Bhumi, Rapo, Analo, Vayu, Kham. These are 5, Pancha Mahabhut. Then 3 subtle elements, Ahankar, Mana, Buddhi, Ahankar. These are the 3 subtle elements, 5 plus 3, 8. 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Gyanendriyas, and 5 Tanmatra. Tanmatra means touch, form, taste, smell, sound, so on and so forth. So 5 plus 5 plus 5, 15 plus 8 becomes 23. So this is the matter is, how the matter is classified according to the Vedas. Now, science classifies the matter slightly differently. Science will take air and, the air in total, they will differentiate as something is oxygen, something is nitrogen, something is helium, hydrogen, so on and so forth. They will have the periodic table, so that is the further classification. That's what the science does. But and then certain aspects of material nature, they are not science is yet to come to that point of classification, right? So this is how the ingredients of the matter, they are counted as 23. And all these are combined and then again dissolved under the influence of time, Kala. And therefore, Kala, which is time, acts under the supervision of goddess Kali. So Kala and Kali. And Prabhupada says, Kali is the energy of the Lord, acts on her own way by the direction of the Lord. This is the dark energy represented as the dark destructive deity, generally worshipped by people in the mode of darkness. So Kali is not some imaginary form. You must have seen the Kali deity, right? Kali Mata deity. So this Kali is actually the Supreme Lord's one of the original energy. Along with Kali Devata, the Lord enters these 23 ingredients of the material nature and activates them. So Prabhupada says further that the energy which acts as the material nature is a combination of 23 ingredients, right? And the Lord enters these elements and enters along with his energy called as Kali. So Kala means time. Kali is the deity which enters along with the Supreme Lord, Kali Devata. And Kali Yuga is something different. Okay, Kali Yuga is part of Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. So Kali and Kali, these are three different things. Okay, we are discussing here about Kali. So further Prabhupada says that this is also explained in Brahma Samhita and Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Samhita says that the Supreme Lord, by his expansions, ekopyasau rachayatum jagadanda kotim yachaktirasti jagadanda chayayanantah andantarastha paramanu chayantarastham. Now, three places the Lord enters. First, the Lord, the original personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, he enters into the material nature. So this is what this Mahavishnu we are talking about. Mahavishnu is entering with Devata Kali. Okay, so this is the Kali, Mahavishnu entering. And then Andantarastha. So Andantarastha is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then Paramanu Chayantarastha is the Kshurodakshaya Vishnu. So this is how the Supreme Lord enters. Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshurodakshaya Vishnu. Short form is MGK because sometimes, all three are Vishnus. We are difficult to know which Vishnu. So Mahavishnu is a bigger Vishnu, Mahavishnu. He enters the Mahat Tattva. Then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he enters the universe. There are multifarious universes, they are coming out. Yasyaika Nishvasita Kalamathavalambya. And then within every universe, the Supreme Lord again enters as Kshurodakshaya Vishnu. And he enters as Kshurodakshaya Vishnu in Paramanu Chayantarastham, even within every atom. So this is, and such universal combinations are infinite in nature, innumerable. And that's why Lord says in Bhagavad Gita that, my dear Arjuna, there is no necessity to know me in full. How much you will know, right? Athava bahunaitena jnatena kim tava Arjuna. Just know that ekamshena sthito jagat. Simply by the fragment of one of the energy, this entire material creation is situated. So these are the wonderful activities of the Supreme Lord, whereas he remains the final cause and the ultimate cause of all causes, Sarva Karana Karanam. So this is how now Mahavishnuji, he has entered 23 elements along with goddess Kali for further manifestation of the universal form. Text 3. सोनुप्रविष्टो भगवान् चेष्टारूपेण तं गणं भिन्न संयोजयामास सुप्तं कर्म प्रबोधयन्. Translation.
Thus, when the personality of Godhead entered into the elements by his energy, all the living entities were enlivened into different activities, just as one is engaged in his work after awakening from sleep. Purport: every individual soul remains unconscious after the dissolution of the creation and thus enters into the Lord with his material energy. These individual living entities are conditioned souls everlastingly. But in each and every material creation, they are given a chance to liberate themselves and become free souls. They are all given a chance to take advantage of the Vedic wisdom and find out what is their relationship with the Supreme Lord, how they can be liberated, and what the ultimate profit is in such liberation. By properly studying the Vedas, one becomes conscious of his position and thus takes to the transcendental devotional service of the Lord and is gradually promoted to the spiritual sky. The individual souls in the material world engage in different activities according to their past unfinished desires. After the dissolution of a particular body, the individual soul forgets everything, but the all-merciful Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart as the witness, the Supersoul, awakens him and reminds him of his past desires, and thus he begins to act accordingly in his next life. This unseen guidance is described as fate, and a sensible man can understand that this continues his material bondage in the three modes of nature. The unconscious sleeping stage of the living entity just after the partial or total dissolution of the creation is wrongly accepted as the final stage of life by some less intelligent philosophers. After the dissolution of the partial material body, a living entity remains unconscious for only a few months, and after the total dissolution of the material creation, he remains unconscious for many millions of years. But when the creation is again revived, he is awakened to his work by the Lord. The living entity is eternal, and the wakeful state of his consciousness, manifested by activities, is his natural condition of life. He cannot stop acting while awake, and thus he acts according to his diverse desires. When his desires are trained in the transcendental service of the Lord, his life becomes perfect, and he is promoted to the spiritual sky to enjoy eternal awakened life. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You are not
Oh,
audible.
sorry. Yeah. So when the Supreme Lord entered into the elements with his energy, Kali, all the living entities were enlivened, and thus they began their activities, just as one becomes active after a long sleep. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that every individual soul remains unconscious after the dissolution of creation and enters into the Lord with his material energy. So now we have seen the creation. And when the creation is wound up at the end of the life of Lord Brahma, we have seen this in detail, how Lord Brahma lives for his 100 years and how his 100 years has, each day of Brahma is 1000 Chaturyuga. Similarly, there is a night of Brahma. 360 such days Brahma lives into 100 years. That is the lifespan of Brahmaji. And after the lifespan of Brahmaji, there is a complete dissolution, and all the living entities, along with material nature, everything will be sucked inside the body of the Supreme Lord when he inhales. And now, for that period, till the time the next exhalation of the Supreme Lord Mahavishnu takes place, all the material nature, Mahatattva, along with all the living entities, they will remain within the body of the Supreme Lord. So, here, this stage is being discussed here. Every individual soul remains unconscious after the dissolution for a prolonged period of time. And then there is again a creation. Somebody may say, why there is creation and again dissolution, again creation? Again, it is very simple. Just like, the mother takes child to the garden, and mother says the maid, here that maid is Kali and Durga, that please take the child to the garden. The child will go to the garden, do a lot of masti there, will enjoy, will suffer, will enjoy the zula, will fall from the seesaw, and do all these activities, very tired, and the child will come back. And the mother will say, now beta, sleep for some time. Mother will feed the child, sleep for some time, and after is awakened from the sleep, again the child will remember, oh, I have to go to the garden and play. Again he will go to the garden, and this keeps on happening. And mother, along with the maids, facilitates the desires of the child to play in the garden, right? So but whenever the living entity comes within the creation, there is always a chance to revive their lost God consciousness, forgotten God consciousness. Therefore, the Vedas are supplied. Maya mugdha jiver nahi swatah Krishna gyan atah Kaila Veda Puran. That's why the Veda and Puranas are designed by Vedavyas or the Supreme Lord in such a way that the living entity will understand, who am I? Sambandha Gyan. What is the goal of my life? Is this suffering in the material world continuously is the goal of life? And then he will start such inquiry, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Gradually he will come to Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan. And the Lord within the heart, he will be watching. And Prabhupada says here, the Lord situated in the heart as the witness, Supersoul, awakens him and reminds him of his desires. Reminds of his desires, reminds of him of the purification. And thus the activities continue from the previous life to the next life. So this unforeseen guidance is called as fate, daiva, right? Just like what to speak of the total annihilation, when somebody goes to sleep, actually the living entity completely forgets, what he is, what he has done. One will be watching some dream, and in the dream world, he would have become somebody else only. He would have become, tiger in the some forest, gone to the some lake to drink the water. The tiger is being attacked by another crocodile. And when he gets back, the moment the living entity every day gets back from the sleep, the Paramatma reminds with entire Sambandha Gyan to the living entity. And this happens day in, day out, not just day in, day out, sleep in, sleep out. Every time we enter the sleep, we forget about the Sambandha Gyan. And, every time we awaken from the sleep, Paramatma reminds them about the Sambandha Gyan. And this is Prabhupada says, this unseen guidance is described as Daiva. So the living entities, when they are in unconscious sleeping stage, when they are during the dissolution part, sometimes people feel, oh, that is only conclusion. People have this wrong idea. People say, oh, what is death? Death is nothing. Death is just long sleep. No, death is not long sleep. That long sleep will come after many, many millions of lifetimes, when there is the total dissolution of the creation. After the death, there will be immediately next life. Karmana daiva netrena jantur deho papatti. So, Prabhupada says people sometimes wrongly accept this entering the dissolution as the final stage of life, as advocated by some less intelligent philosophers. But death is not the long sleep. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityur, dhruvam janma mritasya cha. One will be again born based on the activities and yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Right. But when there is the final dissolution, that time the living entity will enter the body of the Supreme Lord Mahavishnu along with Mahatattva and will remain in the dormant stage. And soon the Lord will awaken the living entity. And this wakeful living entity will be engaged in the exploitative activity of the material nature. All the while, the Lord is patiently waiting that one point of time the living entity will be awakened to the natural state of his natural condition of life. Jive Rasvarupa hai Krishna Nityadas. And therefore Prabhupada says, when his desires are trained in transcendental service of the Lord, the life becomes perfect for a living entity. And then at that point of time, he is promoted to the spiritual sky to enjoy the eternal awakened life. Okay, such a beautiful words Prabhupada writes here. One need to train one's desires, right? When one's desires are trained, desire is everything. So one has to train one's desire in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So this is how. We just started a little late. We'll go for 5-7 minutes more. Okay. We'll just cover one couple more shlokas, small shlokas there. Text 4. Prabuddha karma daivena trayovimshatiko ganaha prerito janayat swabhir matravir adhipurusham Translation.
When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form or the Viśvarūpa body of the Lord came into existence. Purport. The virāṭ-puruṣa or Viśvarūpa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, which is very much appreciated by the impersonalists, is not an eternal form of the Lord. It is manifested by the supreme will of the Lord after the ingredients of material creation. Lord Krishna exhibited this virāṭ or Viśvarūpa to Arjuna just to convince the impersonalists that he is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna exhibited the virāṭ-rupa. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by the virāṭ-rupa. The virāṭ-rupa is not, therefore, an eternal form of the Lord exhibited in the spiritual sky. It is a material manifestation of the Lord. The Archa-vigraha or the worshipable deity in the temple is a similar manifestation of the Lord for the neophytes. But in spite of their material touch, such forms of the Lord as the Virata or Archa are all non-different from his eternal form as Lord Krishna.
So now, when these 23 principal elements, 23 we have seen, 5 Jnanendriya, 5 Karmendriya, 5 Tanmatra, and Ashtadha, Panchamahabhut, and 3 subtle elements, right? So 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 8. So these 23 elements were set into the action by the will of the Supreme. The gigantic universal form or the Viśvarūpa body of the Lord came into existence. That's why this section is development of the gigantic universal form. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Viśvarūpa or virāṭ-rupa is not the eternal form of the Lord. So there is no Viśvarūpa or virāṭ-rupa in the spiritual world, right? Viśvarūpa or virāṭ-rupa is there only in the material world, where we see the material manifestation as form of the Lord. Why so? Because the conditioned living entity, when it is put forward to him that the Lord has a form, the conditioned soul, Baddha Jiv, has come across the form only with limitations. And therefore, there is always a negation of the form. They will say, oh, what kind of form? I have seen every form giving me only trouble and only frustration, only mediocrity. And therefore, to such a neophyte person, the universal form is shown as the form of the Lord. And then he becomes very excited. Oh my God, the lower planetary systems are the legs of the Lord, higher planetary system is the chest of the Lord, sun and moon, they are the eyes of the Lord, the trees are the hair on the body of the Lord, the rivers are the veins of the Lord. That is becoming very excited. And thus the person at least begins to accept the form of the Lord. Why virāṭ-rupa? So same virāṭ-rupa or Viśvarūpa was exhibited by Lord Krishna also to Arjuna. But why exhibited? Just to convince the impersonalist that he is the original personality of Godhead. So Krishna, that is how he exhibited virāṭ-rupa. Prabhupada says here, Krishna exhibited the virāṭ-rupa. It is not that Krishna was exhibited by virāṭ-rupa. Okay. So sometimes people make this misunderstanding. They say, yeah, virāṭ-rupa is, they are enamored by virāṭ-rupa so much, they think that Krishna has come from virāṭ-rupa. No. So it is actually virāṭ-rupa which comes from Krishna. And actually virāṭ-rupa doesn't come from Krishna directly also. We know the expansion. Krishna expands into Balaramji. Balaramji expands into Chaturvyuha, Vespa, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Niruddha. Sankarshan expands into Narayan. From Narayan, there is expansion of second Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Niruddha. From the second Sankarshan, there is Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. And from Mahavishnu, this whole thing is happening. Right? So, it is not, virāṭ-rupa is not cause of Krishna. It is Krishna's, one of the expansion is cause of virāṭ-rupa. So Srila Prabhupada says virāṭ-rupa is the material manifestation of the Lord. So virāṭ-rupa is not spiritual. Virāṭ-rupa is material. Just as the Archa-vigraha in the Lord. Archa-vigraha. Archa-vigraha, sometimes people have this idea, how can you worship the stone as deity? No doubt that deity is made up of stone. Not only stone, deity can be made up of 8 elements. Deity can be made up of paint, deity can be made up of wood, deity can be made up of stone, deity can be made up of a mind, deity can be made up of sand, so on and so forth. So Archa Vigraha form of the Lord can be made up of so many material elements. But when the Lord exhibits himself as Archa Vigraha, the Archa Vigraha itself transforms into the personality of Godhead. We have seen this, right? Pratima Nahitumi Sakshat Vrajendra Nandan. And to prove this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the story of Sakshi Gopal, that how the deity of Gopalji walked all the way from Vrindavan to Katak. That's thousands of kilometers distance, walking behind his devotee, just to assure the devotee that there is no difference between deity and the personality of Godhead. Text 5. Parena Vishata Swasmin Matraya Vishwasan Sanganaha Chukshobhyanyonya Sasadya Yasmin Lokas Charascharaha. Translation.
As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. Purpose. The elements of a cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to create increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in his plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease unless it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed. But without the spirit, matter stops increasing. For example, as long as there is spiritual consciousness within the material body of a living entity, the body increases to the required size, but a dead material body which has no spiritual consciousness stops increasing. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, importance is given to the spiritual consciousness, not the body. The entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. One should not, however, foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is the cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The universal form is called the virāṭ-puruṣa because the Supreme Lord is within it in his plenary portion. Hare Krishna.
As the Lord in his plenary portion enters the element of the creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which the planetary systems, movable and immovable creations rest. So there is an entry of the Supreme Lord within the elements, and as soon as the Lord enters the elements begin to expand. The Lord is the original spirit, and the elements are the original matter. And Srila Prabhupada says, as soon as spirit enters the matter will expand. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the elements of cosmic creation are all matter, and on themselves they have no potency to expand their volume unless there is spiritual entry, the spirit entering the matter. So the matter is product of spirit. Sometimes people wrongly assume that the life is combination of matter. Life comes from matter. They will say certain amino acids and certain, that gave life to unicellular cells. No. By combination of matter, life doesn't come. From the life, matter will come. Srila Prabhupada used to say, just like you plant a neem tree, neem seed, and from the seed you will have a tree, and from the tree you will have thousands of nimbu, and with 1,000 liters of citric acid. So the acid matter is coming from the living entity, life, matter comes from life, right? And it is not that the life comes from matter. Further, Srila Prabhupada says that the entire cosmic manifestation was simply lying dormant, but as soon as the Lord entered the matter assumed the gigantic form and began the expansion. And Srila Prabhupada says, just like, for example, there is a difference between the living body and the dead body. Living body, one will see hairs growing, nails growing, there is expansion, there is activity, there is initiative. But when the spirit goes away from the body is there, but the body is a dead body. The body will start crippling down. The body will start disintegrating because of the lack of the spirit within the body. So it is the spirit which actually gives rise. Further, Prabhupada says, the entire cosmic body increased by the process of that we see in the small bodies. Just like we see in the small body, the same happened with the Mahat body, that is virāṭ-puruṣa. Sometimes people think that the soul mentioned here is that infinitesimal soul, that is Jivatma. Jivatma is the cause of the universal form. But Jivatma is not the cause of the universal form. It is the Paramatma, or the Supreme Lord, in his plenary portion as Mahavishnu. He is the cause. Jivatma is cause of his own individual small bodies that he will have according to his own activities and desires. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Hare Krishna.